Let me start by addressing the elephant in the room. It's a pretty big claim to say you're not going to win a pageant without using AI, but I don't mean it in the way that you think. I don't mean that you need to practice your interview with ChatGPT. I don't mean you need to use AI pageant headshots. I don't mean you need to use AI for anything. I'm saying you're already using AI. If you use a GPS in your car, that's AI. If you have a modern phone that has facial recognition, guess how it does that? AI. If you use Facetune, that's using AI, or any of those similar sort of effects in something like a Photoshop or even your Instagram app that cleans up your skin a little bit so the pores don't show, you're already using AI. Now, the reason I thought I wanted to talk about this right now is because if you've been watching the pageant space, you might have seen that there's a well-known photographer who has started an AI pageant headshot business. And I wanted to give you some thoughts on that. But I want you to stay tuned, because if you stay with me, I'll show you some really cool uses for AI, including how you can get an interactive version of my book for free. And when I say interactive, if you're on pageant prep and you want to ask me questions basically, and ask me questions based on the content of the book, and you can talk back and forth, I'm going to show you how to do that. And for our paid members over on Substack, I know some of you have been struggling with interview. It's pageant season, and if you've been struggling specifically with on-stage question, I have a copy-paste prompt that you can put into your favorite LLM, your LLM of choice, ChatGPT for many of you, and then you can practice your on-stage question. I will tell you, fair warning, it's really difficult. I was practicing it myself, and it wasn't easy, but stay tuned for that, because I want to show you two really cool ways that you can use AI to help with your pageant prep. Now, for you AI doomsayers out there, the naysayers out there, I'm not going to pretend that AI doesn't have its problems. I'm not talking here about AI slop or bad uses of AI. Let's get that out of the way. Any tool can be used for good or for bad. Any tool can be used well or poorly. It's not just AI. It can be a car, it could be a scalpel, it could be a guitar. So let's get that off the table. When it comes to something such as AI pageant headshots, do I think it's a good idea? Clearly, there are quite a few of you who think it's a bad idea, because I could see on the Instagram that got started that the comments had to be restricted. Now, comments only get restricted, at least this is my assumption, when there are fairly high number of, let's say, less than constructive comments. But here's the thing. I tend to try to stay away from telling people what they should or should not do. And my general belief is that if you start a business and someone is willing to pay you to provide that business, then it at least has some merit. If it was a truly evil business, I probably shouldn't say that, because now I'm thinking that there are some businesses that are quite, let's say, unethical, and yet you still have customers. But my point is, I try to stay away from telling people what they should or should not do, what they should or should not believe, whether it's religion, politics, and for me, AI is no different. But here's the thing. I don't have a problem with someone using AI to generate a headshot of themselves if they want to put it on their social media. That's their choice. Specifically, however, with pageant headshots, if they're used to, for example, photogenic prizes, or judges award a photogenic award, if they're being based on headshots, then I think quite obviously that's a problem, because a headshot that people are being judged on isn't real. If they're being used in people's choice, I would also say that's not ideal. But I think with people's choice, most people who do the paid voting are going to be friends and family, not really members of the public. So if it comes down to photogenic awards, and The fine print on that is that photogenic awards don't generally contribute to the main scoring. They tend to be, at least from my experience, separate awards, but they should still be judged fairly. And I don't think it's fair to judge that on an AI pageant headshot. But here's some food for thought. If you're someone who has problems with AI generated headshots, what I would ask you is, where do we draw the line? So, for example, what about face-tuned or photoshopped headshots? Which Facetune is AI anyway, and a lot of the operations that are done on something like Photoshop are basically AI. It's the same sort of thing. Photographer may choose an area to smooth over, and then the algorithm which takes over is AI. It's not that the photographer goes in pixel by pixel and gets rid of, let's say, the mole or the pimple that you had on the day. So where do you draw the line? Also, what about makeup? What about Botox in a 20-year-old, or filler, or cosmetic surgery? Because if the argument is that, well, AI pageant headshots aren't real, they don't represent you as you really are, what about an overly photoshopped image? Or you wearing very, very heavy makeup? That's also changing the way you look. What about Botox, filler, cosmetic surgery, nose jobs, breast augmentations? These all alter the way you look. So you could make the same argument about those things as well. So I don't say this to say that I think AI pageant headshots are good or bad. I'm just saying there's an inherent hypocrisy that I think you need to be very aware of when you say that AI pageant headshots are bad because they're not real. Some of this other stuff changes your appearance dramatically as well. Sometimes more so than an AI pageant headshot would. So that's something that's come up a lot. But I want to give you the example because I use AI quite extensively to create my images, some of my memes or some of my inspirational quotes. And relatively, it's not too often, thankfully, because I think people, you guys, if you're watching this, you understand that I'm a pretty big advocate for AI. And it's not because I'm unaware that there are certain consequences, mainly IP infringement and environmental concerns. I understand those concerns. But I'm a pretty practically minded kind of guy. And if you're going to tell me, forget pageantry for a second, but whatever career or business you intend to pursue, and you're telling me that you're going to leave AI on the table, I have genuine concerns for you. Because I think within the space of a couple of years, a few years at most, I don't really care what business or what career path you're in, you're going to be left behind. In the same way, let's say that when social media came out, a lot of people said it was a fad and they decided not to jump on social media, and then they got left behind. And when I say left behind, I mean their competitors overtook them because their competitors acted more quickly. They became the voice in social media, and now everyone's on social media. And if you start late, that's better than not starting at all. But it's hard to catch up, isn't it? I remember back in COVID when TikTok took off. And I remember telling a friend of mine, someone who I'd interviewed, that she should get on TikTok because it was exploding. And I thought she had a really good personality for TikTok. Now, at the time, I think she was 19 years old, and she told me, I'm too old for TikTok. And I said, well, give it a try anyway. She tried it. And let's just say I saw an Instagram photo of her the other day interviewing one of the real-life Avengers on the red carpet. And now I think safe to say she makes a full-time living off of being a TikToker. She's been on reality TV and all those sorts of things. So it worked out pretty well for her. But that's because I advised her to jump on TikTok at that point where a lot of people, especially adults, were saying, I don't get this TikTok thing. It's a lot of people doing stupid dances, so I'm not going to join it. That was one way of looking at it. And I'm not even going to say it was untrue. There certainly were people there are people still doing silly dances on TikTok, but that's not the only thing that was there. And I think they were missing the point. The point was that eventually TikTok as a platform would become mainstream. And if you waited till it became mainstream to jump on it, you were going to left behind and it was going to be very difficult to catch up. And I implore you, no matter what career or business you're going to go in, I implore you to think of AI the same way. The good news is AI is still in its early adoption phase. It's not mainstream yet. And so you have an opportunity to take massive advantage of it. Now, you might ask me, how do I know it's still an early adoption phase? Well, because I still get comments saying, stop using AI, or people who don't even say anything and they just find that AI, anti-AI GIFs, and they think they're really clever, and they post it on one of my pieces of content, and I hide them all. And look, I hide them all. I think I should clarify this, not because I don't want to have a discussion, because I would love to have a discussion, but because the kinds of people who go onto other people's social media and just be activists, they don't invite conversation, they just put GIFs and stickers saying AI bad, AI is evil, then those people are obviously not looking for conversation. But that's why this cropped up for me today, because someone commented, and I'm going to throw anyone under the bus here, but let me show you a few things here, okay? So, that's not right. Let me start with this, if you'd seen this. Now, this is an Instagram post I put up yesterday. It's doing quite well. I think it has something like 600 or 700 likes. And it's a carousel. I can't quite remember how many different slides there are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, 10, 11, okay? The exact number's unimportant. The point is that it's more than one. And don't get it screwed up. So someone commented underneath this post, could we use, why can't we use human artists to do these images? Now, you might think that's a fair question, but if you know anything about how much these sorts of things cost, not only that, but the amount of time it takes and the process you have to go through, I don't think you'd be asking that question. And that's why, look, I don't engage with people generally who just want to post anti-AI sentiment on my posts, because if they'd done, for the most part, even a little bit of research, they wouldn't be asking that question. And what I find is that most of these people, like many other activists, they just want to go on other people's social media and yell rather than doing anything actually constructive. They just like going on other people's social media, and it's almost like they're angry as a profession, which I think is a giant waste of time. But let me just show you for a bit of contrast here, okay? So that I'm not just talking about AI and saying it's great when I'm not giving you any references for why I believe that. Now, first thing I should say, I'm not new to AI. AI for me didn't begin with ChatGPT. AI began for me when I was in college, because my last subject was about using AI and programming AI. It's come a long way since then. This, as many of you know, I was a tennis coach. And this was a photo I took of a professional player serving. And I wanted to use this as my logo. But obviously I couldn't just use the player without their consent, because they could see, they'd be able to identify the player. And then that's just not right, to use someone's actual image without their consent. So what I wanted to do was create this silhouette effect. Now, this was back in, I think, the early 2000s. There was no such thing as ChatGPT back then. In fact, I don't even think social media was a thing back then. Maybe early days of MySpace or something like that. But this was a photo. A father of one of my students was a graphic designer. I asked him, how much, or is it possible to just create the silhouette of this person? You need to remove the background. I still want the shadow, and I want to be able to fill the silhouette of the player with a color so that we don't know who they are, right? And you can see it's fairly detailed if you have a look, because it's a tennis racket. It needs to have the strings in it and everything like that. Now, this graphic designer, this father of one of my students, had to go back in the day pretty much manually and cut out the background manually, cut out the shadow manually, cut out the individual strings manually. To give you an idea, even back then, this image cost me, I think it was several $100s, and took probably 2 weeks just to do this one image. Okay, I need you to understand, this is like 20 years ago. It was already several $100s and took me a couple of weeks to get back. Now, just imagine if I was trying to get someone to create me an image. You'd have to also factor in the fact that there'd be back and forth in terms of this is not quite right, that's not right, that's not really an issue with this image because you're just cutting out the background. But if I was trying to generate the images that I showed you before that I had posted on my Instagram, there would be a whole back and forth. So it wouldn't just be 2 weeks. It would have been even longer, possibly. Now, you contrast that, right? That with this. Now, if that silhouette cost me several $100s 20 years ago, how much do you think an image like this would cost me? Now, you could say, well, things have come a long way and technology has improved. Yes, but if you're going to get an artist to generate this, they still need to draw it and color it the manual way. There may be some slight shortcuts, but if anything, this is a more complicated image, isn't it? It's not a silhouette. There's all sorts of little details. There's sparkles on the dress, there's text, there's background images, and let's not forget, there's 10 images, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, right? Maybe even one more, but let's call it 10. Now, let's say, for argument's sake, this doesn't cost several $100s. Let's even say it's $50. That's still 50 multiplied by 10 is multiplied by 500. Well, 50 multiplied by 10 is $500 for me to create the images for one carousel post. Now, I'm not someone who can draw. This is the thing that I think most people who want to just yell about AI, like shaking their fists at the clouds, they don't understand. This is not a question of, well, I could get AI to do it, or I could afford to pay an artist a little bit of money and they do it for me. This level, remember, I'm not talking about AI slop. I'm talking about quality images or quality use of AI. It's not easy to replicate that with a human. It would cost a lot more money and it would cost a lot more time. Even if you figure that people could generate maybe 1 or 2 of those per day, and I don't think that'll be easy, you're still talking, by the time you go back and forth, again, at least a couple of weeks before I get back what I want. And here's the thing, I don't think it'd be as good. Because when I get on a Chat GPT or Google Gemini and I can see the image back straight away, I can tell it exactly everything that I want changed. Now, I don't know about you, if you've worked with graphic artists, there are only a certain amount of revisions that you're allowed to make when they quote you a cost, and that's fair, because otherwise if you had unlimited revisions, the poor artist could be drawing the same thing 100 times and they'd never get paid. But I am much more confident, because I'm not an artistic person, but I know what I want. I know that I can get what I want with a Chat GPT or Google Gemini faster and more tuned to what I want than I could ever get from a human artist. But here's the thing. If you told me I had to go to a human artist to get that sort of images done, I wouldn't be doing it. And then you say, so what? Who cares? Don't do it. Being able to generate that quality content, because I can't draw, okay? I've got ideas, I coach, I can write stuff, but I can't draw. Adding that sort of creative, right? This sort of creative, high quality images has enabled me to grow my Instagram account over the last year by a factor of 4. Not 4%, not 40%, a factor of 4. This time last year, I was on about 3,500 Instagram followers. Now, I'm pretty much at 14,000 within the space of a year, when we're being told Instagram organic growth is dead. A lot of that growth was because whether it's memes kind of like this or inspirational quotes or coaching posts, the ability to add high quality creative to it, creative being images and things like that, has made these sorts of posts and images and memes not only possible for me, but imminently shareable. Right? People love sharing some of these because they're so relatable. If I had just put the same post but as text, I guarantee you it wouldn't have gotten nearly the same number of shares, and I would not have grown my Instagram account by a factor of 4x over the last 12 months. And so my point is, I'm a small business owner. Many of you want to own your small businesses. And even if you're working in a 9 to 5, you want to prove that you're valuable to your employer. So I encourage you to think of yourself as a small business in terms of knowing how to market, making yourself valuable. Let's put it that way. And so as a small business owner, this iteration of AI, the evolution in AI, has allowed me to do things I've always wanted to do, but it was never in the realm of possibility. Again, I'm not someone who can draw. I can barely do stick figures. But even if I could draw, there is no way I would have been able to produce the amount and quality of content that I've done over the last 12 months if I hadn't used AI. So that I give you this because I want you to understand the thought process, for me anyway, that goes behind advocating conscious and intelligent use of AI. Again, I'm talking about AI slop. Any tool can be used well or poorly. The other thing I want to mention is that don't get it screwed up. To produce one image like this, it doesn't just take me entering one prompt and then 5 seconds later, I've got all 10 images and I upload and I'm being super, super lazy. I have poured at this stage hundreds of hours into learning how to prompt AI, how to use AI. The AI is also learning about me, learning my tastes, learning my preferences. So when I want certain artistic styles, it's much more likely to generate quality content for me at this point than someone who's never used AI before. So to give you an idea, again, there's roughly 10 slides in here, right? And I know this because I looked at the time of creation of each image. To create this carousel took me in the vicinity of just under an hour. Call it about 45 minutes. This is not something that takes no work. This is not something that is the lazy way out. These people who like to go under posts, and I really hope this isn't you, but if you just go under posts and attack small business owners specifically for using AI, or attack some random person on the internet for using AI, and when you have these assumptions about what AI is before you've even used it, that's the exact same pitfall that a lot of people fall into with pageants, isn't it? They make an assumption about what pageants are or are not before they've even bothered to find out a little bit about them. So for me, creating images like this, creating a post that gets good results, it takes hard work. I can guarantee you, if you haven't used AI before, you will not be able to generate an image as on point as that because you haven't learned the skill. So don't get it messed up. This is not saying that someone who uses AI now doesn't have to work for the rest of their life. Learning how to use AI is like any other skill. The skill generally is in the prompting, but what you bring to the table, knowing what you want, knowing what's quality, knowing what's not, this is why there's this adage that you won't be replaced by AI, but you will be replaced by someone who knows how to use AI. So if you're a pageant coach, you're an accountant, you're a vet, you're a doctor, you own a car wash, I don't care. You have, within the next couple of years, a really unique opportunity, if you know what you're talking about, to absolutely dominate your niche faster and to a bigger, greater extent than ever possible before, if you know what you're doing and you use AI. Versus someone who knows what they're doing and doesn't use AI, versus people who just don't know what they're doing. Now, I know there are a lot of people who are just going into niches and creating the AI slop, trying to make a quick buck. Again, I'm not talking about those people. There are always people like that. There are people like that when crypto came out, when NFTs came out. There are people, frankly, like that in real estate, when they flood the market when real estate's hot, which it is at the moment, but as soon as there's a real estate crash, they all disappear. These are the fair weather types of people. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about you. If you're committed to a niche and you're committed to making an impact, you need to start now learning how to use AI for your niche, because it's not something that you can just pick up overnight. You can't just start creating quality content overnight using AI. It needs to learn your patterns, your preferences. You also need to learn how to prompt and how to use it, what it's good at doing, what it's not so good at doing. And then, yes, you need to sort of keep an eye on how it's updating over time. Right, let's cut to the chase. You've been patient. I've been on my rant. Hopefully you understand the rant a little bit more. Let's talk about the interactive version of this book. Now, this is a software called Notebook LM, created by Google, completely free. And it's really, really good at, if you have a transcript, if you have a book, if you have study materials, or you like listening to some of those YouTube podcasts or those podcasts that go on for hours, and you want the information and the concepts from them, but you don't particularly want to be spending hours every day listening to podcasts, you don't have the time, you can upload a transcript, a PDF, or a public YouTube link, and then you can use this thing called Notebook LM to generate certain learning materials. And I'll show you in a sec, but let me just show you this. So I've uploaded the transcript of my book, and I've asked Notebook LM to generate an audio overview of it. So if I play it,
velvet curtain.
You're on a brightly lit stage and it's intense.
Right? So that's a summary of the book, and that's cool. If you're listening to a podcast, getting a summary that's about 15, 20 minutes long when the whole thing was 2 hours long, saves you some time. You can make it shorter as well. You can ask for a certain target length. Do you want default? Do you want short? Do you want long for more in-depth explanation? You can also tailor it to say what sort of, do you want a comprehensive overview or do you want a bullet point summary? But here's the thing, and I'll put the link to this Notebook LM below so that you can access this for free. Bear in mind, the book is not free, but I'll give you access to this Notebook LM for free. But have a look. This has an interactive join button. When you hit that, the microphone turns on. And by the way, you can get the Notebook LM app on your phone. The microphone turns on. You can ask a question of these. There are two hosts in this, by the way. They're discussing whatever material you upload. There are two. You can ask them a question. So watch this.
Oh, yeah. The heat of those spotlights hit.
Oh, yeah. Go on.
What does Adrian say in the book about the power of psychology when it comes to pageants?
Oh, I love that you asked that because that is the absolute heartbeat of this entire book.
It really is. What's fascinating here is that Adrian Kwan actually makes a pretty bold claim.
He says success in pageantry is 80% psychology and only 20% mechanics.
Right. Most people obsess over the walk or the dress, but that's just the 20%.
Okay, let's unpack this because he's basically saying your mindset is the foundation for every single action.
If we connect this to the big...
Now, I'm going to stop it there, but I hope you can understand how powerful something like this is. And I need you to understand it's free. Completely free. Now, I will tell you that it took me the better part of probably half a year, maybe 8 months to write this book. It's about 300 pages long, tens of thousands of word dense. And to read it, I tried to make it as short as possible. I thought it was going to be 100 pages. It ended up being 300 pages. But to read it, even if you're a pretty fast reader, it's going to take you, let's say, at least the better part of a week. And not all of it, I'm proud of the book, but not all of it's going to be relevant to you. But if I put the book into something like Notebook LM and I ask it a question, Notebook LM can go away, search a transcript of the book, and find the part that's relevant to me. So whether it's about psychology or how to answer on-stage questions or the secret to stage presence or talent performances, because all of that I have in there. I went heavy on psychology because you probably know I'm a qualified life coach and I'm fascinated by psychology, and I really believe mindset underlies everything that we do. But you can interact with these virtual hosts and get your exact questions answered almost instantly and get your answer within a few minutes, get 1 or 2 distinctions that will make all the difference in your pageant journey versus taking a week to comb through a book. And again, I'm proud of the book, but it will take a lot longer. So that's something, I'll put the link to that below. You can use that for free. If you've bought a copy of the book, I thank you. Anyone, doesn't matter whether you got the book or not, anyone can use that notebook LM. Another thing that I'm going to throw in for our paid subscribers over on Substack. So if you want this and you're practicing on-stage question, go over to the Substack post, wherever you're watching this. Make sure you go to the Substack post and you'll see, if you're a paid member, that I'm going to put a link to a prompt. Well, I'm going to put a prompt there. You can copy and paste into a ChatGPT or anything similar that you like, and it's going to act as your on-stage question pageant coach. There's quite a long prompt. Again, this is what people who don't know about AI don't realize. Crafting that prompt, the very first prompt I ever created seriously was for a medical app in AI, and the prompt was probably 2 pages long. These are not easy things to do. Again, it's not just given to you. There's hard work and a skill, a genuine skill involved here, and it's going to be a skill that's extremely valuable, guys, moving forward, right? Knowing how to use AI, knowing how to prompt it to get quality outputs. But there's a copy-paste prompt. You take it, you put it into your ChatGPT, and it's going to start asking you genuine on-stage questions. Not generic interview questions where you go, I'd never be asked that, but the sorts of questions that, to be quite honest, actually stumped me. They're really hard because they're the sorts of questions like, what's a belief that you used to have that you no longer have that has changed the quality of your life? And I'm pretty good with interview, but these questions, bearing in mind that you have probably a 30-second window to answer them, they're not easy. So what I also did with that prompt, I said, if the person has difficulty answering, help them out, give them some structure. And I gave it some specific dot points or bullet points where it should help you with your on-stage questions. So whether you have on-stage question or not, or whether you're just worried about getting the random interview questions that can really throw you off your game, use that prompt. Again, it's for our paid members. It's a prompt. You can just copy, paste it, whack it into ChatGPT, turn on voice mode, and away you go. And I will say, final note, one thing I've been doing with my private clients, I record all our sessions, and they know this. It's not like I'm hiding it. I say I'm recording all our sessions so I can send them the session recordings. And I'm going to give you this example because I want you to think, what's something that you could do for something you're passionate about, whether it's your business, your career, your mission, your platform. I took all the transcripts, and with some of my clients, I've had 10, 20 sessions. And these are hour-long, 2-hour-long sessions. So somewhere between 20 to 40 hours worth of really dense coaching transcripts. I uploaded them all into what I've called a second brain, because it really has everything that I've ever learned about that client and everything that client's ever said to me. It's like a second pageant-centric brain. And so I created these for my clients and I sent to my clients, and they're now using them for questions such as, if you were me, act like you're me, how would you answer this question? Or how can I sharpen my story? Or what's a story? Because it knows all your stories because you divulge them in the transcript. One thing I've said to my clients is develop a story bank. So with the second brain, get it to develop a little like table of different stories you can use in your interview, and what each story tells about you. So maybe this story tells the judges how disciplined you are. This story is like a fun fact. This story is something about resilience, and it's able to do that instantly because it has 20 to 40 hours worth of transcripts. So that's the second brain. Now, if you have something like that, and again, this was just me thinking outside the box. Oh, that would be cool if I could do that. Get the transcripts, put it in, and let's see what happens. If you take that prompt that I talked about, copy-paste prompt, and put it in your second brain, it's going to be able to tell you how you might have been able to answer the question better because it knows so much about you, right? So if you have that second brain, copy and paste it into your second brain. If you don't have a second brain, when would now be a good time to start doing something like that? But the reason I tell you this is not to get you to do that. It's not even to agree with everything I've said. I hope by now I've impressed upon you that you really, really need to learn to use AI. And it's not because I think AI is good or bad. It's past that. I'm a very practically minded guy. I know, I guarantee you that no matter what industry you are in, if you don't learn how to use AI, you are going to fall behind and you are going to get replaced, if not by just an AI completely, certainly by someone in your niche who's good at what they do and they learn how to use AI on top. Someone who knows what they do and learns how to use AI is absolutely going to dominate the niche in a way they could never before. And frankly, I'm for that. You might say, oh, it's unfair. A lot of people are going out of jobs and things like that. And I understand that. I have compassion for that. But here's the thing. If you're the best person in the niche, and everyone deserves to get the best advice, the best coaching, the best services, and AI allows you to magnify your message so you can serve more people, that's good for them. That's good for the customer. And if you know anything about business, the customer's always right. The customer always wins. That's why when AI comes out, it's not going anywhere. When social media came out, it's still here. It's the same thing, guys, when the car came out. We're not still going around in horse-drawn carriages anymore. Now, if you owned a horse-drawn carriage business, when the car came out, you probably said the car was evil, that it was possessed or it's going to destroy the entire planet. But guess what? It was best for the customer, so it stayed around. Same with social media. Exactly the same is going to happen with AI. So please, 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 don't just be an anti-AI evangelist. Also, don't be a pro-AI evangelist. Learn to use AI well. Learn to use it intelligently. And what I will guarantee is you will have a chance to dominate, to be successful, but beyond that, to make an impact that 4 or 5 years ago, because that's how long this sort of AI has been around, with this level of access, you're going to have a chance to make an impact and to serve people in a way, at a scale that was never possible before. And I want you to win. I want good people to win. The mediocre people, as harsh as that may sound, they're going to struggle because they will get replaced. Because if I can go to a ChatGPT, let's take an example as a pageant coach before I wrap up, and if I get just as good advice from ChatGPT as I would from you as a coach, but ChatGPT is free and instant, where you're charging me $200 an hour and I need to wait and I need to book in and I need to talk to a person and go through that whole thing, I'm going to go to ChatGPT. It's that simple. And I should, because it's faster, it's cheaper, and it's better. But if you're one of those people who really know what they're talking about and your quality, whether it's a wedding dress designer, a pageant coach, a violinist, whatever it is, I implore you, please learn how to use AI, because we need you to get your message out. Not someone who is just mediocre, not someone who doesn't know anything and is just spamming left, right, and center AI scam and AI slop and AI crap. We need you, the quality person, to get your message out. So please promise me you'll do that. Doesn't have anything to do with pageants per se. Pageants is part of it. But if you have any questions about any of this, let me know. The link to the free notebook LM for everyone will be below, so you can interact with my book. And for our paid subscribers, as I said, as a way of thanking you, you'll get that copy-paste prompt if you want to practice on-stage questions or random questions that throw you off guard. And if you have that second brain, whether it's because I set it up for you or if you set up something similar for yourself, whack that prompt into your second brain and you'll be amazed at how well it can coach you. Thanks for listening, guys. I'll see you next time.